Good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Mathias will be joining us shortly. The Dwarka Expressway construction has really created a chaos, so he's stuck somewhere there, but he'll be joining shortly. So we're discussing the growth in rural India through QR codes. You know, every 2 or 3 days when I open Twitter, I come across a tweet which says that I have been traveling cashless in India. I have not carried my wallet, and that's how efficient, the UPI ecosystem has made our payment, the way we do payment, the way we transact. And clearly, when we are talking about rural India, when we are discussing this, we also need to discuss the JAM Trinity, the Jan Aadhaar Mobile Trinity, that actually helped in increasing that financial inclusion net, that widened that net, and then which in turn led to the growth that we are seeing the way Bharat transacts or the rural India transacts. And in your opening comments, panelists, that is exactly what I want to know, your thoughts on how the Jan Aadhaar Trinity has helped in accelerating that digital payments adoption, and your experience in how the adoption has picked up in rural India, both for consumers, merchants, and how they are transacting. Sir, if you would like to start.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to all of you. Yes, indeed, it has picked up everywhere, and rural India is definitely not exception. See, I'll take this to a different direction. See, if it has penetrated, of course, the jam is the root cause of what we are witnessing today. I think a couple of days ago, you all saw I think German foreign minister transacting in a vegetable shop, and it went viral. That photo became viral. So it is the street vendors in urban India or the small merchants in rural India or anywhere. The QR codes are the cornerstone of all digital transactions, but there is an objective of why this is happening. Actually, there are two reasons. One, many of our, nano or micro enterprises, they are informal. So we all, very often, we come across this that, despite a large population of MSMEs, the credit flow is not adequate. So if the credit flow is not adequate, then what exactly is to be done? So the reason behind why credit flow, despite a robust credit growth, still there are people or a section of the entrepreneurs who are not getting it is many of our entrepreneurs, micro and nano level, they are operating at an informal level, and banks are formal financial institutions. So connecting informal to formal is definitely an issue. How do we do that? In fact, we have undertaken a massive formalization program for the informal sector, for the informal entrepreneurs mostly operating in the rural segments or elsewhere, so that they become part of the formal financial system and the formal system, so that they get assistance from the formal financial system. And in fact, many other benefits they can get whenever some interest subvention for a particular sector comes, they can take the benefit. Whenever they can get themselves registered in GEMS portal, etc., etc. There are, to name a few. Of course, they will be part of the priority sector lending of the banks the moment they are in the formal sector. And two, still, if some people are still not in a position to do, then with the help of technology, now the digital footprints that they are leaving is analyzed, and a cash flow based lending is something that is taking shape. The fintechs, even the banks are now using it more and more. So when they are making the payments, receiving the payments through the QR codes, it is actually, they are leaving their footprints, and the transactions they are doing is there for everyone to see. And based on that, the credit flow definitely can improve to the informal sector, more particularly in the rural India. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya, for those opening comments. Mr. Mathias, you just joined in time. We were talking about the JAM Trinity, how it has widened the financial inclusion net, and the experience of consumers and merchants in rural areas and how that digital adoption has picked up vis-a-vis the urban areas?
Hey, thanks, Arjun, and apologies for joining this date. I think if you just look back at the last decade, I think clearly the adoption of digital payments has been one of the significant achievements that as Indians we can be proud of. And I think the big point of inflection was 2016-17, which was when the spread of internet connectivity grew exponentially on the back of a new entrant, then Jio. But I think the ground was laid much earlier when India actually, got the entire UIDI process going, and today what has more than 130 crore Aadhaar users, people who actually have an Aadhaar card, which therefore gives the entire underlying basis. But the second big significant jump really came with the establishment of the NPCI and the entire UPI, right, which made the whole connection between the number of Aadhaar users, the vast number of new account holders that really happened through the Jan Dhan Yojana that really spread, and the fact that there was a layer of security. I think together the evolution of the India stack actually made digital payments a reality and made India clearly the leader by far. Right? The one part is what it can do for us, but I think very briefly we also have to acknowledge that this is a step that India can show the way to a lot of developing countries who hitherto had always had to be dependent on large payment infrastructures held by large global corporations, the big credit card companies, the big payment interfaces. I think India developing its own model to this really made a big difference. In terms of what it does to local industry, specifically to the MSME sector, I think two big parts. One, it has opened up the entire area of quick transactions, which earlier were really beneficiary to large merchant establishments who had relationships with payment intermediaries. This really opens up, right? Every one of us technically, has a QR code, can make or receive payments as long as we link it to a bank account. That opens it up. The second, I think, as Dr. Acharya, very relevantly made, it enables the micro and small payment infrastructure in terms of giving them some kind of preliminary credit rating, right? Given the fact that a lot of them are not able to avail of loans from large banks or public sector institutions, being in the formal sector, for a lot of them, this is the process whereby they will be able to kind of pick up small working capital needs that require to enhance the business. But the biggest single gain is that this spreads the use of merchants to a large amount of people. Today, when you talk of an MSME, it no longer is a properly well-established large organization. It's virtually an individual, a housewife making pickles in some corner of India, who through the ability of this payment ecosystem and working with, shall we say, some e-commerce providers or marketplaces, is able to reach an audience that's not just national, but very often international. I think that is the one significant gain, that we are just in the beginning stages of really seeing the evolution, but can truly be path-breaking and game-changing, and something that India can justifiably export to the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mr. Mathias. Mr. Sinha, your quick thoughts on it?
Thank you, Arjun. Namaste to all of you here. Jam, Arjun, I'll take it up, I'll break it into two halves, and just for the information of the lovely audiences here, let's take it in two ways. Number one, the MSMEs, and the number two, the rural India. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you some statistics, because when we talk statistics, it actually opens up. India has 6.64 lakh villages. India has 776 districts. You see JAM, which is Jan Dhan, when it started, what was the reason why the Indian government wanted that was Honorable Arun Jaitley ji who launched it. You understand 6.64 lakhs villages. On the other hand, you have 7 crore MSMEs. Arjun, out of 7 crores, audiences, 98% are micro. 98%. So please understand, in India, 2% are only SME, and there is no definition called SME, it's only MSME. So when we are talking micro, which is 98% of 7 crores, and we are talking of 6.64 lakh villages in India. Come to think of it, when the digitalization started, if you see the statistics which is coming up, it says out of the 122 million smartphones which is sold in India today, and this is Government of India records because I deal very closely with Niti Aayog. I'm in the Capacity Planning Commission of India. It says 35% are used by rural India, are bought. Smartphones are bought by them. Now the transaction levels is also growing in the rural sector and in the somewhat backward districts by 61%. Ladies and gentlemen, I am quoting numbers as the numbers presented by the Government of India. For them, the accessibility was much faster when we adopted digitalization. Today, as my fellow panelists talked about the German minister, his name is I've noted it down, his name is Mr. Volker Wissing. Now, when he was visiting and when he was scanning through, he could not believe that this is new India, this is new digital India. What it meant was less of cash transactions and more of a digital transaction. I have spent maximum time in Gujarat, so I can give you some example of some of the backward districts, Arjun, in Gujarat, something like Junagadh, which you must have seen in your TV channels of late, which was badly affected by floods. The rural areas are adopting digitalization faster. The benefits of Jan Dhan, the benefits of UPI, the benefits of Aadhaar and a mobile-linked payments are actually visible in Gujarat. And to a larger extent, I'll say it is also now being visible in Rajasthan. So when we say a jam, right, we are talking of an advancement. In 2000, it was only China which used to talk about digitalization. In 2023, we are India which is talking about digitalization. Now, it is because of this that we have advanced. Please think of the volume which is covering. It cannot be covered only if we are talking of a cash-based economy. We have to replace it, and that is how a jam came into picture. That's I think my opening introduction or statistics, because I believe in putting forward more of statistics.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for quantifying and putting things into perspective. Ms. Talwar, your quick thoughts on the numbers that Mr. Sinha has put up.
That was really some good statistics, Mr. Sinha. Thank you for sharing this. Ladies and gentlemen, all I would like to add here is that the phone has given a power to a citizen or to an Indian citizen who is there in rural India today. एक औरत जिसके अकाउंट में पैसे जाने थे और वो नहीं जाते, today she has the power to get the money in her mobile phone, either through e-rupee or any other means that Jam Trinity or whatever schemes the Government of India is launching. To me, this is the biggest power. Because to me, women were 49% of our population and still unproductive and still were not being looked at, who needed all the attention. These were the women who were working in the farms, who were there in agriculture sector. They're working as a labor, but they're not given the darja of a farmer. So today, if she's getting money in her mobile, which primarily is coming to her account, and then she does whatever. Earlier it was that वो अंगूठा लगा देती थी, कोई जाके उसके लिए पैसे ले आता था और वो जिसको मर्जी दे देती थी. अब आज उसके अकाउंट में पैसे जा रहे हैं. This is number one. Number two, India has shown a story to the world. I travel a lot around the world because of the business. India has shown a story to the world when they tell us that give us a solution when on my mobile I can do everything. Can you believe it? What is the story we set in front of the world? The world is looking at us. They say, I don't need to carry anything, and we have really given that story. My ID is there in DigiLocker, my payment is there in QR code, and my phone is a smartphone, or the money can be transferred virtually without any intermediary, without any payment gateway, which was never the case. It is on one screen, one form. So that's the power what digitalization has given to India. That's the power where the digitalization has brought India on the world map. And that's the power where India is being looked at being the guru of the world. So to me, Jam Trinity has done this to India.
Thank you, Mr. Talwar. Dr. Yadav, if you could share the Ministry of Finance's perspective on how they have looked at this transformation.
थैंक यू अर्जुन. गुड आफ्टरनून टू ऑल. जैसे मिस्टर सिन्हा ने भी बताया कि जो 98% है MSE सेक्टर है, तो मैं इसमें बताना चाहता हूँ कि जो टोटल MSME है उसका 51% रूरल इंडिया से आता है, तो एक बहुत बड़ा अमाउंट है. और अगर हम 16th सेंचुरी की भी बात करें, अगर हिस्ट्री में भी जाते हैं, तो जो हम ये देखते हैं कि 16th सेंचुरी के आसपास हमारी जो पर कैपिटा इनकम थी इंडिया की, वो सबसे लार्जेस्ट थी पूरे वर्ल्ड में. उसके बाद थोड़ा सा डिक्लाइन हुआ MSME में. और रिसेंटली एक सर्वे भी मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि एक सर्वे हुआ था जिसमें ये बताया गया कि अगर हम लोग करेंसी के अलावा क्रेडिट कार्ड या UPI से, इससे जब हम परचेजिंग करते हैं तो कोई भी इंडिविजुअल ज़्यादा खर्च करता है. अगर वो कैश में खर्च करेगा तो कम खर्च करेगा, क्योंकि उसे थोड़ा सा कष्ट होता है खर्च करने में. लेकिन ये साइकोलॉजिकल भी है. आप भी देखेंगे कि जब आप क्रेडिट कार्ड से खर्च कर रहे हैं या डेबिट कार्ड से या UPI से, तो आप मतलब थोड़ा सा आपको कष्ट नहीं होगा, आप ज़्यादा खर्च करेंगे. तो ये जो वेलोसिटी ऑफ करेंसी है, ये तो इंक्रीज़ हुई है. और जब भी वेलोसिटी इंक्रीज़ होती है परचेज की, तो एक अच्छा जाता है MSME सेक्टर को, क्योंकि उनकी जो अर्निंग होती है. तो इस लिहाज से, क्योंकि हम देखते हैं कि अब गांव-गांव में भी हर ठेले वाले पे, हर जगह पे UPI भारत QR कोड जो है लोगों पे है. और एक उनको अपना अकाउंट भी अब थोड़ा सा वो सीख रहे हैं मेंटेन करना, उनके अकाउंट में भी कुछ पैसा आ रहा है. तो इससे वो थोड़े से ऑर्गेनाइज्ड वे में जा रहे हैं, जो मतलब हम लोग चाहते हैं. और RBI भी कई सेंटर एस्टेब्लाइज कर रहा है जिसमें फाइनेंशियल एजुकेशन के लिए उनको बताया जा रहा है लोगों को, MSME सेक्टर्स को. तो डेफिनेटली मुझे लगता है कि आने वाले टाइम में हम लोग काफ़ी आगे जाएंगे इससे करके. और एक चीज़ और साथ में बताना चाहता हूँ कि जैसे एक बहुत अच्छा एक नारा चल रहा है जैसे MSME के लिए कि चरखे से चंद्रयान तक. तो ये पूरी मतलब आपने देखा होगा कि कल भी चंद्रयान पहुंचा है. तो इसका अर्थ ये था कि जैसे MSME बनाती थी पापड़, अगरबत्ती, ये सब, तो उससे ऊपर उठ के उन्होंने कई MSMEs ने चंद्रयान के पार्ट्स भी बनाए हैं. तो जैसे हम लोग चरखे से चंद्रयान की हमने यात्रा की है, तो मुझे लगता है कि बहुत अच्छा फ्यूचर है और डिजिटलाइजेशन जो है इकोनॉमी को मूव करेगा फॉरवर्ड.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Now, coming back to, the MSME sector, and Mr. Mathias, you mentioned, Dr. Acharya, you mentioned. Now, of course, we're talking about the payments that these businesses are taking or transacting through QR codes. And that has helped, in giving them visibility in terms of their credit worthiness. And financial crunch has been a big challenge for them, getting quick credit. Credit has been a problem for them. Tell us how it has improved that, and the fintech revolution which started in terms of payments, today it has shifted to digital lending. So how has that opened a big opportunity in terms of digital lending for the small and medium businesses segment? Dr. Acharya, if you could.
Yeah, thank you. See, when you dissect the problems of the MSMEs, I'll not say problems, the concerns of MSMEs. There are primarily two. There is hardly any number 3 issue that possibly can come up. One is access to credit, and second is the access to market. So these two are the primary problems faced by MSMEs in particular, any business in general. So addressing the access to credit issue, as we discussed already, this is something that, because 98% of, as Dr. Sinha was telling, 98% are in the micro segment. In fact, out of that 98%, more than possibly 90% will be in the nano segment. There is no classification called nano, but so what I'm trying to say is our businesses in rural areas or in urban areas also are, to whom we call micro, are really micro and very small. So how do we reach out to them with credit? It is very, very difficult for formal financial institutions to do that. So there are different sets of institutions, whether it is the now NBFCs. In fact, especially the fintech NBFCs, the MFI NBFCs, they are coming out with this individual products to reach out to these people, and there it is completely digital process that analyzes, amongst other things, this particular thing, that how much transaction is happening. Otherwise, there was absolutely nothing to rely on. They don't maintain particular any formal records as such, because the nature of business is such. So the only thing that, amongst other things, they can rely on is the payment and receipt transactions that is captured digitally. They can analyze and project certain things into the future, and based on that they can establish and derive their cash flows, and again based on that they can extend some credit to them. So to a large extent this is helping in solving one of the issues, concerns, and then come to the access to market. Access to market is something, see, the likes of the Flipkarts and Amazons of the world, obviously they will not touch this segment. And even if they are touching, the commissions that are charged, I think many of you will vouch, is very, very high. So how do our people take advantage of this digital e-commerce space? In fact, all of you might be aware that recently, to democratize digital commerce in the country, Government of India has launched this ONDC platform, Open Network for Digital Commerce, and we are very, very aggressively trying and onboarding the artisans, weavers, the small businesses, micropreneurs, etc. on the ONDC platform. And there, this is coming very, very handy. This digital transactions are coming very, very handy. So to a large extent, going forward, this digitalization and QR codes are going to a large extent, address these issues of access to credit and access to market.
Thank you, Dr. Acharya. Mr. Mathias, as an investor, you've seen the rise that digital lending platforms have seen within the realm of the fintech sector. What's the opportunity that you're seeing for them here in the small and medium businesses space in terms of providing credit, and how the QR transactions have actually helped them, the MSME sector, reveal their credit worthiness much more clearly?
Yeah, I think one justifiable byproduct of this mass digitization, the fact that today a large section of our economy has kind of come on board thanks to digitization, so we can actually trace and track payments, is the fact that, as Dr. Acharya mentioned, is that now one is able to actually look at the cash flows within individual micro and small medium enterprises, which in a sense is the first step towards some kind of digital lending. The other aspect, and I think the yin and yang to that aspect, is really the fact that thanks to digital payments and the growth of fintech, today there's a broad basing of financial infrastructure, both at the micro level and at the other level. If you just look at the number of retail investors in the last 3 to 4 years who have entered the stock markets, that has been a big jump, right? If you look at the success of the top 3 fintech platforms, today you're talking of close to about almost 250 million Indians who at some level transact and get into the public stock markets, which earlier was a small niche segment of players. I think together that really widens the financial play. The robustness of an economy is the number of people who come into a formal financial ecosystem, whether as taxpayers, whether as stock market players, whether as traders, whether as merchants, or whether as consumers, right? We're seeing the overall growth. The second point, I think, is that while ONDC is about to democratize the process of e-commerce, which is positive and we have to support it, I think at some level this has to be a joint effort between public and private. If you look at how digitization grew, I think the government made some great steps in terms of setting up UIDAI, getting NPCI in place. But the big jump came when telecom infrastructure reached the corners of the country. Till 2015, the ubiquitousness of a Uber, a Ola, a Zomato, a Swiggy was not so much, because just the number of smartphone users was still 60, 70, 80 million. Post the Geo revolution, suddenly you talked about 400-500, today about 750 million Indians on the internet. That makes the possibility of us hailing a Ola or a Uber or going to a Swiggy or Zomato ubiquitous, anywhere in the country, in small towns and such villages. Similarly, in the context of digital lending, I think together with what ONDC is enabling and a whole lot of other private apps, I think we will be able to get to the smallest segment of entrepreneurs, nano entrepreneurs, micro and small, because that is where the true strength of the economy will come through. When the smallest person has access to some degree of credit, some degree of financing, and therefore gets access to a much wider market, which in historical times would have been a geographical 2 or 3 kilometers around his home. Today he can actually technically access the world, or to start with at least the country. I think that process, I think India has put the basic levels in place. Just one last point I want to make is that the reason why India has climbed the curve on digital infrastructure so heavily is that digital infrastructure does not depend too much on intermediaries. In the physical world, quality of roads, the quality of ports, the quality of rails, the time taken was important. I think in the digital world, it's all real time, right? Once you have a proper tight, you have a great 4 or 5G service, and once people get on board at low cost, and India has the lowest cost data in the world, I think all these processes can be enabled absolutely seamlessly. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but clearly I think it has to be a joint effort. The government can play enabler and has to play enabler, but the moment private enterprise picks up the ball and starts moving, that's when we'll see the exponential impact of this going forward.
Very well put up, Mr. Mathias. Thank you so much. Mr. Sinha, your thoughts on it?
Thank you. Can I add another perspective,
Absolutely.
Arjun? I'll add another perspective here. The future of business, and I think Mr. Mathias will also agree here, the future of business depends on 2 parameters. One, which is a push from the government of India. I'll come back to the QR, which you're not talking about, is ease of doing business. Am I right? Everybody has heard about ease of doing business. Ministry of Finance working very closely because they also need to have a say when they talk of numbers being achieved because of ease of doing business. It is not only ease of doing business which is going to help. I'll come to the QR code also. Ladies and gentlemen, the era has come of speed of doing business. Please do not only sit back when we talk of ease of doing business, it's speed of doing business. Now, this digitalization, Mr. Mathias, if you'll agree, has shifted gears of speed of doing business. Today, all of you who are sitting here, many of you are MSMEs. Do you think your clients are waiting for the RTGS? Are your clients are waiting for the NEFTs? Or, let me tell you, I think in our times, Mr. Mathias, Mr. Yadav, there used to be a system of drafts. You would take a draft and you would go to the customer, or a check for that matter. You would go and you would present it to your client and say, yes, this is the payment. He would say, please come back after 3 days and we will see what happens. What is it now? Even if it's a holiday, the transaction happens. In fact, I was not happy because even on a holiday, the EMI gets deducted, right? But what does it mean? It means speed of doing business. Ladies and gentlemen, when we were talking of JAM, Jan Dhan Yojana, the Aadhaar, and linking it with the mobile, we're talking of QR codes, how it is helping us. It is bringing the faster process into your day-to-day business lives. Talking of a very small number, the value with my senior panelist here, Mr. Mathias, while we have learned the benefits out of it, we have not learned that it comes with some pinch of salt, which is the cyber attacks, the cyber security, the how to protect. Now, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, यादव साहब आप इसके लिए ज़रूर एग्री करेंगे, इन्होंने एक इतना बढ़िया सिस्टम शुरू किया है. सर, वी मस्ट अपलॉड, वी मस्ट स्टडी व्हाट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया इज डूइंग. सर, आज की डेट में आप पिन से अपना ऑथेंटिकेशन करते हैं बैंक ट्रांजैक्शंस. एम आई राइट और रॉन्ग सर? सर, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया से एक स्टेप आगे चल गया थैंक्स टू मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस. इफ यू गो टू अ इंडियन पोस्टल बैंकिंग सिस्टम, सर वहां QR कोड्स है, आप उससे ऑथेंटिकेशन कर सकते हैं. And the entire focus of the banking system, I think we have a very senior banker sitting here. In fact, during the lunch also, you can interact with her. Bhavita ji is there. Please talk to her. She will tell you how every bank is pushing digitalization in every aspect. They say, please don't come to the bank. Please don't come to the bank, sir. We are going to do everything anything you want at your stage. Sir, but what is happening is while we are buying a smartphone, while we are using a internet, we have to understand that there are a lot of attacks also happening. The phishing is also happening there. We are not being aware, we are not being educated about the attacks which is already there prevailing with us. And that is causing a fear. Mr. Mathias, I'll tell you, why is today somebody like, for example, my colleague, she's an ex-banker, Soumya is sitting here, if she has been phished or there has been a case, Soumya, where you have been taken out from your accounts about 10,000 rupees, you will never accept it. But sir, are we doing any kind of educational programs, any awareness programs? Arjun, you have been writing so beautifully. I've been, last couple of days, before coming here, I was getting goosebumps that I have to sit next to you. So I had to do my homeworks here. Tell me one thing, is there any awareness programs which has gone through, which talks about what all other attacks that you're open to, you're prone to? Now think of a rural India, think of an MSME. There are a lot of MSMEs sitting here. Now, they have been brought up in a traditional way of check, draft, NEFT, RTGS. How do I graduate from there until you do not educate me?
True.
Now, that big time awareness is missing. That big time understanding that this is faster business, because you will never get globally connected to your buyers if you're not into ease of doing business and speed of doing business. But alternatively, the maximum scam happens there. So I think this is the biggest challenges are awareness and the various programs which is not happening relating to what can be the benefits and how do you overcome those benefits.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sinha, for summing that up so beautifully. Ms. Talwar, your thoughts on that?
I would say that, in our company, when we are doing our systems, because we are doing financial transactions and settlements with many banks, we have set up a data center which talks seamlessly to NPCI, and we know how much security we take care of, how much encryption, decryption we do, what kind of firewalls we have. My experience, as I said earlier, is usually a financial fraud happens for an individual when the individual does some mistake. But there are other attacks. Ransomware, we've gone through it. Ransomware is where the name suggests that somebody captures your data at one of the site, one of the toll sites, somebody captured my server. The server was under somebody's control, the data is under his control. And now he says, pay me so much to get your data back. No, data is the king. Those attacks are something where the cyber crime experts sitting outside India are also working 24/7. And we have to continuously evolve, and we are evolving. Anytime we have a ransomware attack, next time on next site, we take care that nothing of such sort happens. I don't know, my team told me, that we are even building up the system for SBI. We're doing their end-to-end solution, and we are integrating with FASTag. It's a big system. And working for SBI, they take care of smallest of things. It seems that on their website, they have written out, they've given a challenge, hack us and we'll reward you. So if such systems SBI can give, and this is what my team said, that ma'am, they have this. I said, really? I was pleasantly surprised. I said, really? If SBI can do, then I would say the systems are there in place. Sometimes we get lazy. Sometimes we leave one thing that nothing is going to happen. But if you put every system in place, there's no way somebody can hack your systems, one. Two, why are people not using these systems? I think it is more the way we are. We used to paying by cash. We used to doing things in a certain way. So we don't do. Ladies are used to doing the businesses which are more close to her creativity, so they'll do that. So I think it is the way, and the way we are made, the way we've been behaving. That's the reason that digital payment system is probably not becoming as popular as it should have been. Every infrastructure is in place, everything is in place. It's only that people have to be told, yes. Mr. Sinha, what you told, that education is the key. If we spread this education to the people that use it, man, this system is for you. You also spoke about the phones, that there not many of them are which are smartphones, and they are simple
Feature.
Windows phone. And e-rupee has two options to it. It's a prepaid amount which goes to a customer account. One possibility or one option is doing it through QR code, and second is just an e-voucher which can go on your Windows phone. So a person can encash both the things in any what ways, but the person should be able to encash. There is no dearth of technology, I would say, Arjun. The dearth is in people's adopting it and people understanding the technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaur. Yeah.
Can I tell, for the benefit of all the audience, one mega thing which is going to happen in the G20 summit on the 9th and 10th of September?
Sure, sir, sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government of India, the Honorable President of America is landing on the 7th.
Yes.
The G20, what India is going to show on the 9th and 10th is something you all will see on your TV sets. This is the first time nobody will be coming to scan you. This is what the government of India is going to say. They will walk through and they'll be scanned. They'll be walked through and they'll be scanned. Everything, all the delegates. So, yes. So 6,000 delegates who will be in Dwarka. So none of them, including the president of US, will see what India has achieved. So this is, I was just reading it yesterday, and it'll be amazing. They'll just walk through the G20. In fact, I invite you tomorrow, there's a B20 event. Please see, you'll walk through and you'll be scanned. You'll be walked through, you'll be scanned. This is your new India.
Dr. Yadav, very quickly, your concluding thoughts on the challenges which the panelists mentioned and what can be done to bridge them.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Sinha and Mr. Acharya. एक तो जो ऑनलाइन फ्रॉड है वो तो प्रॉब्लम्स है ही काफ़ी बड़ी. उसके लिए गवर्नमेंट अवेयरनेस प्रोग्राम्स को कंडक्ट कर रही है, चला रही है उसको रीजनल सेंटर्स के थ्रू, डिस्ट्रिक्ट इंडस्ट्री सेंटर्स के थ्रू, कई जगह पे MSME डेवलपमेंट ऑफिसेज हैं उनके थ्रू कर रही है. लर्निंग प्लेटफॉर्म्स को डेवलप कर रही है कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग ऑनलाइन इसके बारे में सीख सकें, डिजिटलाइजेशन के बारे में सीख सकें. कुछ पोर्टल्स भी डेवलप किए हैं गवर्नमेंट ने, जैसे आपने देखा होगा कि MSME के लिए संपर्क, संबंध, ये सारे पोर्टल्स बनाए हैं. मार्केटिंग के लिए भी MSME मार्ट करके एक पोर्टल बनाया है जो NSIC ऑपरेट करता है. लेकिन फिर भी अभी बहुत कुछ करना बाकी है. जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा था कि एक इनोवेशन और एक अवेयरनेस, ये दो चीज़ें हमें लानी ज़रूरी हैं, तो फिर हम MSME को ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फ़ायदा पहुंचा सकते हैं.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Let me tell you, in my 3 years with Businessworld, I've moderated over 50 panels. This has to be the most engaging one. We were supposed to be completely done with this panel by 12:40, but we were clearly around. We took 1 hour. So that's how engaging it was. Thank you so much, panelists, for this, and giving our panelists an informative and engaging discussion. Thank you so much.
Arjun, can I request Businessworld, like Devika is here, if I can make a request. Yesterday we were seeing a lot of reels coming up of the entire India jubilating because itna sundar bola Yadav sahab ne, charkhe se Chandrayaan tak. Can we all stand up and clap for our yesterday's achievement, and if Businessworld can record that this happened in today's program.